Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of TB76's TSW Thoughts, where I look at Train Sim World products and review them from my own brutally honest perspective. I am an independent reviewer, so I am not affiliated or endorsed by Dovetail Games. Today, we are looking at All Aboard Studios' WCML Birmingham to Crewe route, which was going to be the first episode of TB76's TSW Thoughts, but this has been delayed until now due to waiting for the updates, and I was not going to review it in its semi-broken state. Now that the patch has been released, and the problems are for the most part fixed, quotation marks, I will be reviewing it from its current state. So without further ado, let's get into the overview. The section between Birmingham and Crewe forms part of the West Coast Main Line between London Euston and Glasgow Central. It is mostly set in the county of Staffordshire, which includes the pre-1974 parts of Staffordshire that are now part of the West Midlands, specifically around Wolverhampton, Smethwick, and the area known as the Black Country, which was named after the coal deposits of the South Staffordshire coalfield and the soot from the many historical industries of the area. The route goes between the station of Birmingham New Street and the historic railway junction of Crewe, depicted in its current state. Crewe first appeared in Spirit of Steam, sick, depicted in its pre-electrification state, and will appear in Just Trains' Preston to Crewe in its mid-1980s state. The trains included in the route are 3 variants of the Class 350 EMU based off their 2019 specifications. The Class 350/1 first appeared with WCML London to Milton Keynes as one of the core routes of TSW5, but the 2 other variants, the Class 350/2 and the Class 350/3, were not included. AAT modified and modelled the missing 2 variants for Birmingham to Crewe, which is a most welcome addition. Also included is the British Transport Police Class 350/2. Here's a quick comparison of the interiors of the 3 variants. And now, here is a real-life comparison of a Class 350/2 taken from when I visited Birmingham and took a Class 350/2 to Wolverhampton in 2023. Additionally, in October 2025, I took a refurbished Class 350/4 between Lichfield Trent Valley and Tamworth, and here's a comparison of the interiors. To round off this comparison, we will listen to a departure in-game and compare it to real life with a recording from me at Tamworth. The busiest section of the route is between Birmingham and Wolverhampton, where West Midlands Railway, Avanti West Coast, London North Western Railway, Transport for Wales and cross-country services run to destinations westwards, including Shrewsbury and the Cambrian line of Mid-Wales, and north and eastwards towards Stoke-on-Trent, Crewe, Manchester, Northern England and Scotland, via Stafford. Also outside of Wolverhampton is Oxley Car Maintenance Depot, which Avanti West Coast uses to maintain their Class 390 Pendolinos. Also at Wolverhampton, you can see the former GWR Wolverhampton low-level station, which closed in 1972 when services were concentrated at the ex-LNWR high-level station as a result of the electrification of the West Coast Main Line the previous decade. The result of said electrification in the 60s as part of British Rail's modernisation plan is the brutalist architecture of stations such as Stafford as a result of its 1962 rebuild. Wolverhampton, rebuilt between 1964 and 1967, and pre-rebuilt Birmingham New Street at the same time, although the latter was rebuilt in the 2010s. Wolverhampton Station was refurbished from 2018 to 2021, which involved the 1960s era station building being demolished and replaced with a new station building. Here's a comparison between the two stations in game and in real life. Wolverhampton Station is modelled in its current form, with the West Midlands Metro tram stop being adjacent to the station, with a CAF Airbus 3 modelled for the mastery layer. Despite the route in the timetable being set in 2019, the stations and infrastructure are modelled in their current state, a bit like the early 90s trains, with late 2010s infrastructure on the Huddersfield line in Train Sim Classic, and arguably the upcoming Stuttgart to Heilbronn route, which will probably be out by the time you're watching this. I can put this down to AAS referencing and building the route in its current state for accuracy reasons. Layers from other TSW add-ons include the Class 323 from Birmingham Cross City, the Class 170 in both West Midlands Railway and Cross Country from Rivet Games' Class 170 back, the Class 220 Voyager, the Avanti Class 390 Pendolino, although in 2019 it was mostly still the transition between Virgin trains and Avanti West Coast, and the Transport for Wales Class 150 from Cardiff City Network, in place of the Transport for Wales Class 158, although the Cambrian lines uses ETCS and the Class 158s and the Class 197s are fitted with ETCS for the Cambrian lines. Additionally, the Class 158 from Skyhook's Midland Main Line add-on layer in for AI services from Crewe to Derby via Uttoxeter, and the Northern Class 323 from the Glossop line layer in for the Style Line services, again AI only. Rail Tour layers from other add-ons also layer in. Some other features on this line include the two-level Smethwick Galton Bridge station, although for this add-on the low-level platforms are used, while the high-level platforms for the Snow Hill lines do not have any AI services. There are also the remains of two closed stations between Stafford and Crewe. One of them is Norton Bridge, which the platforms remain in situ abandoned, and no trains have called since upgrade works to the WCML in May 2004, and formally closed in December 2017. The other is Whitmore Station, which closed in 1952, but the station building remains bricked up and depicted in its bricked up state. Madderley Station, which also closed in 1952, is not represented, as from what I gather, it was demolished after it was closed. Now on to what I like, disliked, and what can be improved. What I like. The scenery and station modelling for the most part is very good. AAS did a very good job with the stations especially. However, like a lot of TSW routes, there are some rough patches. The inclusion of the models of the aforementioned closed stations is a good point for the route as well, especially Norton Bridge in its abandoned state. Carried over from the Cross City line is Birmingham's brutalist power signal box, dating from 1966, which however closed in late 2022, but was still in use in 2019. The inclusion of the British Transport Police Class 350/2 350235 is an added bonus to the route, with the detailed BTP vinyl on the first class coach. I don't know why, but the ex-London Midland livery always reminds me of shampoo bottles for some reason. That, with the other Class 350 variants, is a much welcome addition in TSW. Now, if we can get other variants with like the Class 375 and 465 from Southeastern High Speed.
Editing TB76 returns here. I've just learnt that the Class 375/3 and the Class 375/6 with new audio, GSMR functionality plus guard mode are coming as part of Firefly Simulation's Medway Valley line, which is a most welcome addition to the game. But I would also like to see the other Class 465 variants with the Hitachi inverters and the 465/2 with the original Met Camel inverters, like the 465/9. That would also be great as well. I just found this out while I was editing.
Even though it wasn't included in the Cross City line, Soho Depot, the erstwhile depot of the Class 323s before they moved to Northern in 2024, is included. This is a much welcome addition into TSW and lets you do empty stock movements with the Class 323s. The amount of service variation on the route, especially between Birmingham and Wolverhampton, and to a lesser extent between Wolverhampton and Crewe, makes for a busy and varied timetable. However, for freight services you will need Skyhook's cargo line pack, which is a bit of a downside as I don't really like or own it except for Volume 5. One of the route tasks, and one that you can only find at Crewe, are models of the Class 370 APT, which I find to be rather cute. If you drive the Class 220 Voyager between Stafford and Wolverhampton, you have the opportunity of reaching the top speed of 125 miles an hour. However, on the section towards Crewe, since only tilting trains can reach 125 miles an hour, you are limited to 110 miles an hour. However, it may only be brief before having to slow down for either Wolverhampton or Stafford. What I dislike. Is this meant to be LSL at Crewe? It looks completely lifeless and no static heritage stock, unlike at Derby Etches Park on the Midland Main Line DLC. Static heritage stock should be added. Why is the tram at Wolverhampton crashed into the buffers like this? It needs to be moved further away from the buffers. The stairs are inconsistent. At some stations like Smethwick Galton Bridge, they're all jerky like on some Gary's Mod maps, where they haven't added a player clip brush to the map over the stairs. But on the stairs at Sandwell and Dudley, you go down them smoothly. But at Tipton, as you can see here, it is a mixture of the two. One problem that happens is that an AI train stops off path, seizing up the entire section between Wolverhampton and Birmingham, so you're not able to complete your service. It tends to mostly happen when going southbound. Fix, please. One issue, however, this is beyond the route, is that Birmingham to Crewe was scheduled to be a TSW 5 release, but it was pushed back to TSW 6 because of, well, DTG, and led to a whole host of issues. I will link you to Train Sim Society's video on the matter, where it is explained in detail. What can be improved? In my honest opinion, the line could be improved with the addition of the Stoke-on-Trent loop, which will add 5 new stations to the route: Stone, Stoke-on-Trent, Longport, Kidsgrove and Alsager. There you'll be able to run cross-country services towards Stoke, AI Northern services towards Manchester, Piccadilly via Macclesfield and Stockport. The Class 158 services being drivable between Crewe and Stoke, and extending the Birmingham to Crewe via Stoke services. The two close stations of Wedgwood and Barlaston will be modelled, but trains obviously won't stop there. That would be a much welcome addition to the route, and if AAS are willing to do the Stoke-on-Trent loop as an extension, I'm all for it. What I would recommend, since Avanti didn't take over the WCML franchise until late 2019, a neutral white unbranded Class 390 should be included, as seen in this picture I took at Macclesfield in early 2020. So in conclusion, the DLC, in my brutally honest opinion, has a solid foundation and concept, but however, the actions of DTG and the initial bugs have left an initial bad impression, and I recommend you watch Train Sim Society's video about the subject. Some more bug fixes will make this route even better, and what would be even better would be the Stoke-on-Trent extension. I would recommend it, but wait for a sale. But if you want to buy it at full price, that's up to you. The next review should come between Christmas and New Year. That will be the Leipzig to Dresden route, and following that will be the Spoorlijn-Zwolle Groningen and then Stuttgart to Heilbronn. And after that, I don't know yet, but I'll let you know nearer the time. Until then, this is TB76 signing off. Goodbye.